A racist individual decides to harass a FedEx driver. Here's the video.
Give your father. Give your father. What the? You dumb black. My dog is telling you right now. You get hurt. Bird bitch. Cool guy. Nah, dude. Get
After the assault and the racial slurs, he then decides to take a package, all right? So let's do it this way. Let's highlight a screenshot here of the individual who was the victim. This is a Michigan situation. A Michigan man may now face a hate crime charge for attacking a FedEx driver, stealing his deliveries, and calling him the N-word repeatedly. The FedEx driver, his name is Tirrell Lipsey, caught the assault on August 27 in Michigan on his dash cam video, shared it with the media. The driver said the man called him the N-word at least twice, rambled about his dog, and at one point said he would sick the animal on Mr. Lipsey. He said the attack didn't stop there. There's more background. Lipsey said the man then began following him to homes and stealing packages. Imagine the fear of this FedEx worker. One of the thefts was caught on a Ring doorbell camera. Neighbor Andrew Moore, who captured the video, said there were medical supplies inside of that package for his sister, and those medical supplies were taken. A FedEx spokesperson said the company is, and I quote, both saddened and outraged by the behavior exhibited in this video. And our first concern is for the driver involved. We are staying connected with him and offering our support. We also have verified that a police report was filed and an investigation is underway to further address this incident. So let's go to the police. The police said the assailant was on meth and was taken to the hospital to be treated for a mental condition. Well, look at that. Reports show the suspect was arrested and authorities are considering charging him with assault and battery, ethnic intimidation, illegal entry, larceny, and malicious destruction of property. They're considering it. I mean, they're talking about it amongst themselves. Now, I want to contrast here. He obviously committed criminal offenses. He obviously engaged in felony theft, likely felony assault, general harassment, stalking, everything else, right? He did these things on video, it's clear. But what did the officers do when they responded? They said, wait a minute, this poor guy, he's obviously high. He's on meth. So let's not criminalize him. Let's go ahead and make this a mental health issue, even though it was called in as a criminal issue. Now let's compare what happened recently in the state of Georgia to a 911 call that was a mental health call, where the young lady was diagnosed as schizophrenic. The grandparents that called the police, they said, our daughter just needs some help, our granddaughter just needs help. She ended up being dead, and still unanswered questions from that. Or how about the countless stories we've covered right here on Indisputable when 911 received a call for a mental health emergency and the individual who happened to be black or brown, they were killed by the hands of law enforcement? Or what about the millions of cases across this country where individuals are suffering a mental health issue in that moment? They are simply taken to jail, prosecuted, and handed over to prison. But not in this case. In this case, police officers were able to ascertain the person was high. So obviously they could not be responsible for their behavior, according to the police. So they decided to take him in for a mental health evaluation. and they are considering, possibly, perhaps, maybe in the future, filing charges. We covered a similar story, even more dramatic than this one. Remember this story? Back in February, we reported on a story where a black FedEx driver, Mr. Gibson, was shot at in Mississippi by a father-son duo. And what happened to them? These were similar tactics, and initially, they were not charged. They later did get charged, but they were not charged with attempted murder. And the FedEx that this young black male worked for said that he had to come back to work and work that same route, and he refused to do so. That was the story back then. FedEx had a different response back then than the response today. Maybe a difference between corporate and local, but still the same company at the center. All right, Adrienne, this is interesting. Please help me understand, why is it that the police decided to respond to this matter as a mental health response when it was a 911 call for a criminal emergency?
It's very interesting to me who gets the benefit of the doubt in our society, whose humanity is readily apparent, who law enforcement and the system goes out of their way to ensure is cared for and treated with the utmost dignity and respect. And we often see that it is not black people, but it's generally white people, and including when the white person is the assailant, is the criminal, is engaged in behavior that is threatening society. And it's incredibly disheartening as well as pathetic, especially the system that says justice is blind and that everyone should be treated equally. Yeah, they should, but it's clearly not the case of how it actually ends up playing out.
You know, my law school professor would be fuming right now because he's the one that taught me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Adrienne. When you engage in illegal activity, like let's say drinking too much, then driving, you are criminally and civilly responsible, even if you're out of your mind. You are criminally and civilly responsible if something adverse happens because you engage in the initial action that you knew could lead to this kind of outcome. Why is it that if the person happens to be high, he is no longer, according to the current narrative of law enforcement, responsible for the product that comes after him getting high? Tell me the difference here, if you could.
Oh, there's no difference. It's just selective application of the law. These officers, and I'm sure whoever the DA is, just using their judgment to decide who they want to apply the law to and who they don't. Because it is absolutely correct that if you ingest something knowingly, whatever the consequences are is a you issue. Yeah. And the fact that they don't want to hold this person accountable for their behavior. Again, I do very much appreciate the use of discretion and deciding when you should enforce the law and shouldn't. But it's just interesting how those who enjoy the benefit of the law not being enforced tend to look a certain way, particularly when their victim also looks a certain way.
That's right, and that's the point we're trying to bring home here.